Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something ancient, strange, and unbelievably powerful. The mind-blowing coincidences in medieval history that simply can't be explained. So, before you settle in, take a breath, dim the lights, and let your imagination slip into a world where kings, monks, merchants, and ordinary peasants unknowingly shaped events in ways that seem almost impossible. And before we begin this massive journey, tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? In the small, misty valleys of 12th century France, monasteries dotted the hillsides like silent sentinels of time, each cloister a repository of knowledge and superstition. The monks who inhabited these stone sanctuaries lived in strict routines, punctuated by the chimes of bells that dictated prayer, work, and study. And yet, within these walls, a strange current of fate sometimes seemed to stir. Brother Guillaume, a monk known for his meticulous copying of manuscripts, had a reputation not just for his handwriting, but for his uncanny sense of timing, predicting events that left even the abbot unsettled. Guillaume was often seen walking the cloisters at dawn, muttering sequences of numbers and names that he claimed came to him in dreams, visions of people he had never met. The other monks dismissed these murmurs at first, chalking them up to the effects of too many nights spent by candlelight over dusty tomes. But one autumn morning, a letter arrived at the abbey, bringing news of the birth of a prince in a distant castle, a child whose very existence Guillaume had sketched in detail weeks earlier. He described not only the date and hour of birth, but also subtle details: the color of the child's hair, a small scar above the brow, and even a faint limp in one leg, none of which could have been known at the time. Word of this prediction spread cautiously, whispered among the local lords and scribes who had dealings with the monastery, and soon Guillaume's reputation as a man who glimpsed the threads of fate grew. Yet he remained humble, often insisting that he merely recorded what the world was willing to show him, a cryptic answer that satisfied some and mystified others. Years passed, and the child, now a young prince, lived a life fraught with danger, political intrigue, and deadly skirmishes between rival noble houses. Every time misfortune struck, the monks remembered Guillaume's writings, finding that even minor events, a mislaid letter, a missed meeting, a small accident, mirrored the monk's predictions with eerie precision. One chilling afternoon, news arrived that the prince had fallen ill under circumstances that matched a note in Guillaume's margin, predicting a sickness that would occur precisely when the crescent moon aligned with a certain constellation. The abbey became a quiet hub of speculation, attracting scholars, envoys, and clerics who sought insight from the monks' notebooks. Guillaume himself, however, continued his daily life unchanged, tending to the vegetable gardens and copying texts as if oblivious to the fascination his foresight had created. Some argued that his predictions were mere coincidences, while others insisted that an unseen hand guided events, weaving a tapestry of fate that only he could interpret. Interestingly, Guillaume's foresight was not limited to royal affairs. He chronicled events affecting common villagers, from floods to crop failures, with similar accuracy. One spring, he recorded the appearance of a disease in a neighboring hamlet, describing symptoms that matched what would later be known as smallpox. And local healers took note, preparing rudimentary treatments in time. The villagers marveled at his insight, though few understood the method. The line between wisdom, superstition, and inexplicable coincidence blurred. In another case, Gijom noted that a traveling merchant would lose his goods on a specific day while crossing a river, a prediction that came true when the man's cart overturned, scattering barrels of salted fish and grain into the cold waters. Some claimed that Gizom had never met the merchant and had no reason to know of his travels. Yet the entry in the abbey records matched the incident with startling clarity. Stories of this kind began to circulate quietly across nearby towns, and Gigam became a figure both revered and feared, a man whose writings suggested that destiny could be glimpsed if only one knew how to read the signs. The abbot, cautious yet intrigued, occasionally asked Guillaume to explain the principles behind his predictions. But the monk remained cryptic, speaking in parables about shadows, numbers, and the subtle rhythm of nature. "You cannot force the world to reveal its secrets," he would say. "You can only notice when it chooses to whisper them to you." Many interpreted this as a warning that fate was not to be manipulated, only observed, a philosophy that would shape the abbey's culture for decades. As decades rolled on, the prince grew into a king, facing battles, alliances, and betrayals. And Guillaume's early notebooks became treasured documents, consulted during moments of uncertainty. Historians, centuries later, would marvel at the precision of these entries, noting that some coincidences seemed too exact to be attributed to chance. It remained unclear whether Guillaume truly foresaw the future or simply had an extraordinary knack for understanding human behavior and timing. Yet the aura of the miraculous never faded. Even today, when scholars pore over these medieval manuscripts, they pause at the pages marked with cryptic annotations, wondering how one man in a quiet French abbey could predict events with such fidelity. Some dismiss it as luck, others as intuitive genius, and a few suggest something more mystical, a glimpse into the hidden order of the world that only a rare few could perceive. The story of Brother Guillaume reminds us that the medieval era, often painted as dark and ordinary, held mysteries that confound our understanding even in the modern age. Brother Guillaume's meticulous notes contained more than just predictions of noble births and illnesses. He often charted the subtle patterns of nature, recording the migration of birds, the behavior of river currents, and even the precise timing of eclipses. The monks, initially skeptical, began to see a strange harmony between these natural events and the outcomes of human decisions, as if the world itself moved in a rhythm only Guillaume could perceive. It was said that he could glance at the shape of clouds and know which villages would suffer floods or famine months in advance, an ability that kept the abbey in quiet favor with local farmers and merchants. One autumn Guillaume predicted a series of unexpected storms that would uproot trees and damage granaries, advising the abbey's farmers to reinforce storage buildings and prepare extra hay for livestock. When the storms arrived almost exactly as he described, neighbors came from distant villages to witness the abbey's preparedness, leaving with a mixture of awe and whispered suspicion about the monk's knowledge. These events, small in themselves, began to accumulate a reputation that Gijom neither sought nor fully understood, but which seemed to follow him like a shadow across the valley. Guillaume's fascination with numbers also played a role in his uncanny foresight. He would spend hours observing the patterns of market activity, noting the arrival of caravans, fluctuations in grain prices, and even the subtle changes in coin designs. He recorded these observations with painstaking detail, producing tables and charts that appeared mundane, but were often referenced when disputes arose over trade agreements or taxes within nearby towns. Merchants would sometimes consult the abbey for guidance, unsure if they were seeking divine insight or simply prudent accounting. Yet they left convinced that the monks' calculations held a mysterious, almost prophetic power. The monk's predictions were not without peril. On one occasion, he foresaw that a visiting nobleman would suffer a fatal accident during a hunting expedition in the forest outside the abbey. He attempted to warn the noble quietly, but the message was intercepted by servants who laughed at the notion of prophecy. And the incident occurred just as Guillaume had foreseen, a stray arrow hitting a tree and ricocheting in an improbable trajectory. Word of the event spread like wildfire, cementing his reputation, but also attracting unwanted attention from ambitious lords and clerics, eager to claim credit for the monk's apparent insight. Guillaume's personal life remained remarkably simple despite these stirrings of fame. He ate frugally, slept little, and often walked for hours in the misty dawn, observing villagers, animals, and the rhythm of the seasons, as if every small detail contained a secret message. He documented births, deaths, marriages, and even minor quarrels in local taverns, finding connections between events that others considered trivial, but which he believed revealed a hidden structure in human life. This obsessive cataloging of events, mundane and grand alike, would later be studied by historians, fascinated by the apparent pattern of coincidences that seemed almost preordained. Perhaps the most curious of Guillaume's entries involved a traveling minstrel who would pass through the region exactly twice in a decade, each time coinciding with a momentous event in the local church or castle. The monk recorded the minstrel's songs and gestures in such precise detail that when the man appeared years later, the townsfolk recognized the performance exactly as Guillaume had predicted, down to the smallest flourish of the lute. Some whispered that the monk had discovered a kind of rhythm in life itself, a hidden timing that ordinary people could neither perceive nor influence, yet which governed all things in subtle ways. Beyond these personal predictions, Guillaume occasionally referenced cosmic events, noting comets, solar eclipses, and unusual planetary alignments, and connecting them to earthly happenings such as plagues, famines, and political upheavals. He made careful observations in the margins of his manuscripts about how the appearance of Halley's comet would coincide with the death of a minor noble, or how a lunar eclipse seemed to precede outbreaks of illness in nearby towns. Though medieval understanding of astronomy was rudimentary, Guillaume's correlations were striking, as if he had glimpsed a universal pattern linking celestial phenomena to human affairs. Despite his growing reputation, Guillaume remained humble and detached from worldly ambition. He refused offers from kings and nobles to serve as a personal advisor, preferring the quiet discipline of the abbey to the chaotic intrigue of courts. He spoke rarely of his methods, and when asked how he achieved such precise predictions, he would smile and gesture toward the manuscript-laden script. implying that the answers lay in patient observation rather than magic. Monks, visitors, and even skeptical nobles left with a sense that they had encountered someone who understood time and chance in a way that transcended ordinary human reasoning. In his final years, Guillaume's notebooks grew thicker, filled with observations spanning decades, a detailed ledger of lives, natural events, and coincidences so precise that scholars today often marvel at their accuracy. Even as he aged, his predictions continued to align with events, reinforcing the sense that he was attuned to forces invisible to the eye, subtle currents guiding history in quiet, imperceptible ways. When he finally passed, the abbey mourned, yet preserved his manuscripts carefully, aware that within those pages lay insights into fate, coincidence, and the delicate threads connecting all lives. The legacy of Brother Guillaume became a touchstone for later historians studying medieval Europe, illustrating that the boring details of daily life, the timing of markets, the movement of rivers, the pattern of seasons, could intersect with extraordinary coincidences. He reminded the world that even in the quietest valleys and most modest monasteries, lives were interwoven with subtle patterns beyond immediate understanding, shaping history in ways both mundane and miraculous. Guillaume's story, preserved in fading parchment and careful script, continues to fascinate, urging modern readers to wonder how much of history is chance, how much is design, and how many coincidences remain unseen in the quiet corners of time. Guillaume's observations extended beyond people and celestial phenomena to the minutiae of medieval infrastructure, noting the condition of bridges, roads, and mills with unusual foresight. He often predicted which wooden bridges would weaken after floods, or which mill wheels might break under heavy rainfall, helping villagers avoid accidents and loss of goods. Such records, while appearing trivial to outsiders, were invaluable to those who relied on precise timing for trade and agricultural planning. In one case, he predicted the collapse of a mill dam during an unusually wet spring, advising the miller to reinforce the wooden structure. The villagers initially laughed, seeing the advice as overly cautious. Yet, when torrential rains arrived, the dam held firm where he had suggested reinforcement, while neighboring mills suffered damage and flooding, validating the monk's meticulous attention to patterns. This small yet significant act reinforced the perception that Guillaume's insight extended far beyond luck, encompassing an understanding of natural forces and human activity intertwined. Guillaume's attention to human psychology also contributed to his predictions. He noted social tensions, rivalries between villagers, and hidden alliances, recording them with such subtlety that he could anticipate conflicts before they erupted. A petty dispute over a shared pasture, which seemed insignificant, was carefully logged. Within weeks, the quarrel escalated into a legal battle, exactly as Guillaume had hinted in his cryptic notes. Villagers began to quietly consult him, often under the guise of casual conversation, hoping to understand what unseen currents of behavior might influence their lives. He also kept track of seasonal labor, documenting the planting and harvesting schedules with extraordinary precision, noticing even minor deviations in crop rotations or irrigation patterns. When an unusually early frost threatened vineyards, Guillaume's notes allowed the abbey and local peasants to take precautionary measures. saving a significant portion of the harvest that would otherwise have been lost. Such practical interventions, couched in careful observation rather than magical claims, enhanced his reputation as both wise and seemingly prophetic. Guillaume's notebooks contained intricate genealogies of local families, cross-referenced with political alliances and regional conflicts, creating a complex web of cause and effect that few could decipher. He predicted marriages, deaths, and disputes among minor nobility, sometimes decades in advance, based on these meticulous records and his observation of human behavior and temperament. This chronicling of social dynamics suggested a systematic approach to understanding history, not as random events, but as interlinked sequences, each decision rippling outward with consequences. Interestingly, Guillaume recorded unusual coincidences that defied explanation even to him, objects lost and later found in unlikely places, animals behaving in ways that foreshadowed human events, and natural phenomena coinciding with personal tragedies. One entry detailed a hawk swooping near the abbey just hours before a child went missing in a nearby village. The timing and location, he noted, seemed more than coincidence, though no causal link could be established. These observations, written with calm detachment, hinted at the monk's willingness to acknowledge mystery and chaos alongside pattern and order. Even mundane items, a cracked pot, a mislaid key, a torn tunic, were recorded in his margin notes, with events linked to subsequent outcomes in the community. Guillaume seemed to believe that every fragment of life held meaning if observed carefully, that small incidents were part of a grand tapestry of human experience and fate. Such meticulous documentation created a labyrinthine record, part diary, part prediction manual, which later generations would marvel at for its depth and precision. He maintained a curious relationship with time itself, often writing about hours, not just days or months, predicting that certain actions must occur at precise moments to yield particular results. A note in his manuscript recorded that a messenger must arrive before the third bell of the day, else a deal would fail. The next week, the predicted delay occurred exactly as he described, astonishing both clergy and merchant alike. This attention to temporal detail suggested an almost mechanical understanding of causality interwoven with intuition, as if Guillaume could feel the clockwork of human events. Guillaume's interest in medicine and natural remedies intersected with his predictive abilities, as he recorded symptoms of illness, natural cures, and seasonal epidemics. He accurately foresaw outbreaks of influenza and fevers, advising villagers to avoid certain wells or to isolate the sick. And often his observations were corroborated by later accounts in local chronicles. This practical application of his foresight reinforced his standing, not only as a prophetic figure, but also as a guardian of the community's health and well-being. Even the movement of animals drew his attention, for he believed that livestock behavior often mirrored impending human events. A restless herd could presage a storm. A missing flock might signal theft, or a sudden panic among horses might precede a royal procession or battle. Farmers began to bring their animals to the abbey for Guillaume's assessment, not fully understanding why his insights were so accurate. Yet, trusting the pattern he discerned through patient observation. In these ways, the mundane rhythms of medieval life, work, travel, trade, weather, and animal behavior were woven into a network of coincidences that Guillaume's notebooks documented with almost obsessive care. By the end of his life, Guillaume's work was a vast compendium, hundreds of carefully inked pages cataloging a century of life in that valley, births and deaths, storms and floods, feasts and famines, marriages and quarrels, comets and eclipses. The manuscripts, while dense and intricate, revealed a mind attuned to patterns invisible to most, one that perceived the interplay of chance, behavior, and nature as a coherent system. Even those who could not read his script sensed the weight of his observations and left with the impression that the world itself had whispered its secrets into the hands of a single monk. Guillaume also observed patterns in weather that most villagers ignored, writing meticulous notes on wind direction, rainfall, and cloud formations, correlating them to both agricultural output and human events. He predicted that a late frost would ruin certain crops if the farmers did not cover the seedlings. And when the frost arrived, those who heeded his advice preserved their harvest, while others suffered loss. Such small interventions built trust slowly, as villagers began to regard him not only as a monk, but as someone in tune with the hidden rhythms of the world around them. In addition to natural patterns, Guillaume noted human mobility with incredible accuracy. Observing the comings and goings of traders, pilgrims, and wandering knights, he could predict the arrival of a caravan or a messenger weeks in advance, often providing guidance to townspeople on when to expect visits or potential disturbances. This subtle knowledge of movement allowed him to foresee events that seemed unrelated, yet coincided with wider political or economic consequences. Guillaume's fascination with architecture and engineering also informed his predictions, as he observed the decay of timber, stonework, and bridges over time. He accurately foresaw when a castle's drawbridge would fail or when a roof would leak during heavy rains, advising repairs that prevented accidents and loss of property. The abbey's reputation grew not just as a center of religious learning, but as a repository of practical foresight, where mundane maintenance intersected with extraordinary insight. The monk had an uncanny sense of timing, noting the precise hours when certain events were likely to occur. From disputes between villagers to the precise moment a bell tower's wooden support might groan under strain. One entry recorded a fire outbreak in a nearby barn, predicting the exact hour it would begin due to a lantern left on an unstable shelf. Villagers who followed his instructions were able to save their livestock and grain. This attention to the intersection of daily life, human error, and natural forces further reinforced the perception that Guillaume had access to knowledge beyond ordinary means. Guillaume also chronicled unusual coincidences in social rituals, such as weddings, baptisms, and feasts, noting how minor disruptions often presaged larger events. A poorly tied knot in a bride's garland, a spilled goblet of wine, or an unusually loud argument during a feast were all carefully logged and later matched outcomes, such as disputes over inheritance or unexpected deaths. These observations suggested a deep awareness of cause and effect, as well as a keen eye for subtle signals that others might dismiss entirely. Animals, too, played a role in his predictions. Guillaume would watch livestock and wildlife for signs of forthcoming events, interpreting unusual behavior as messages of impending danger or opportunity. A flock of birds that refused to take flight on a certain morning might precede a storm, while a lost dog would mark the start of a small but consequential quarrel between families. Such attentiveness made him a bridge between nature and human society, showing that all life in the valley was interlinked in surprising ways. Guillaume's notes often contained moral lessons, hidden within descriptions of coincidence and foresight, urging readers to observe carefully and act wisely. He wrote that paying attention to small details could prevent calamities, preserve harmony, and perhaps even reveal the secret structures of destiny itself. His manuscripts, filled with careful observations, became a manual for mindfulness in daily life, blending practical advice with hints of the mystical. Even the minutiae of trade and finance drew his attention. He predicted shortages, fluctuations in coinage, and the misplacement of goods, all meticulously recorded in tables and marginalia. Merchants and abbey accountants sometimes consulted these entries, finding that Guillaume's records offered guidance in avoiding loss or anticipating opportunities. Whether in grains, livestock, or cloth, these practical interventions again blurred the line between coincidence, foresight, and a deep understanding of human and economic behavior. In his final years, Guillaume reflected on the sheer improbability of some events he had recorded, marveling at coincidences that seemed too precise to be explained by observation alone. He occasionally mused in his manuscripts about unseen forces or a quiet hand guiding history, hinting at the mysterious nature of fate without claiming divine revelation. These reflective passages imbued his work with a sense of awe, showing that even the most diligent observer could still be humbled by the intricacy of life. The manuscripts, hundreds of pages in length by the time of his death, formed a unique historical record, one blending mundane daily details with extraordinary foresight and remarkable coincidences. Guillaume's careful attention to human behavior, nature, infrastructure, and celestial events created a comprehensive picture of medieval life rarely seen in other chronicles. For centuries afterward, his work would inspire historians, philosophers, and mystics, inviting readers to consider how much of history is accidental, intentional, or guided by forces unseen. Guillaume's legacy was not only in the specific events he predicted, but in his methodology, patient observation, meticulous record-keeping, and the belief that all life, human, animal, and natural, was interconnected. Through his notebooks, the abbey preserved a testament to curiosity, discipline, and wonder, reminding generations that even in the quietest corners of medieval Europe, astonishing coincidences occurred constantly. By studying these manuscripts, modern scholars continue to uncover subtle patterns, proving that the monk who predicted a king's death before he was born was far more than a simple observer of life. He was a chronicler of the hidden symmetries of the world. In the bustling towns of medieval Europe, life moved at a slow rhythm dictated by markets, church bells, and the changing seasons. Yet beneath this apparent ordinariness lay a network of coincidences that shaped lives in ways unseen. Merchants kept careful accounts of trade, while nobles juggled alliances and rivalries, and peasants labored in fields whose yield depended on weather and chance, unaware that small events could ripple outward with immense consequences. It was in these intertwined lives that coincidences often appeared, leaving both contemporary observers and modern historians bewildered at their precision. A wealthy cloth merchant in northern Italy, Giovanni, once discovered that two of his shipments, meant to arrive a week apart, were accidentally switched due to a clerk's misreading of a ledger. Remarkably, this swap coincided with an outbreak of demand in a distant town, causing him to profit far beyond expectations, an event he later described as fortunate mischance in his journals. Similar instances occurred across Europe, with minor errors in bookkeeping or delivery sometimes producing unexpectedly advantageous outcomes, blurring the line between luck and fate. Nobles, too, were affected by seemingly minor coincidences, often with profound political consequences. In southern France, a lord accidentally misplaced a letter of alliance, which fell into the hands of a rival family. This misplacement, rather than causing disaster, ultimately prevented a premature conflict, as the rival misunderstood the message and delayed their intended action, giving both sides time to negotiate peace. Chroniclers of the time marveled at such incidents, recording them as signs that providence or destiny had intervened in the affairs of men. In small villages, coincidences often intertwined with daily routines. A shepherd might find a stray lamb in the wrong pasture, only for its presence to warn of a predator lurking nearby, or a baker might misplace a batch of bread, inadvertently saving it from spoilage during an unseasonable heatwave. These minor, almost trivial occurrences were documented in monastery records, revealing a pattern that suggested the mundane and the extraordinary were inseparable. Villagers began to rely on monks and abbots as interpreters of these coincidences, seeking guidance for both practical and personal decisions. Some coincidences appeared to involve timing with celestial events, echoing Brother Guillaume's meticulous observations. In England, a merchant fleet, delayed by fog, arrived just as a comet appeared, coinciding with a local fair and producing unexpected profits that were chronicled as an event beyond human calculation. Such occurrences were often noted in annals with phrases like "the heavens conspired" or "fortune aligned," capturing the medieval sense that cosmic and human events were mysteriously connected. Even weddings and births bore patterns of coincidence. In a small German village, twins were born in different households on the same night, both of whom later rose to prominence in local governance. Their simultaneous births were recorded in church registers and later referenced as miraculous, suggesting that fate sometimes worked in parallel across families and communities. Similar alignments of birth dates and marriages appeared in monastery chronicles, revealing a complex lattice of human connections that historians now describe as improbable but documented with care. Coincidences were not limited to favorable outcomes. They also involved misfortune, sometimes striking at precisely the moment when intervention could have made a difference. A farmer who neglected a warning about an impending storm lost his harvest, just as another, following the same advice, salvaged his entire crop. Such accounts were preserved as moral lessons in abbey records. The juxtaposition of fortune and misfortune created a rich tapestry of human experience, suggesting that even trivial decisions could influence larger historical currents. Merchants often documented coincidences involving contracts, trade routes, and currency, recording minor mistakes that inadvertently led to profit or disaster. One linen trader noted that a miscounted bundle of cloth led to the resolution of a dispute between two rival towns, preventing violent confrontation and fostering cooperation instead. These occurrences, mundane yet historically significant, illustrated the subtle interplay between chance, human action, and social structure. In the courts of nobility, coincidences sometimes had strategic implications. A knight delayed by a misread letter arrived just in time to save a castle from a surprise attack, altering the course of a minor war in ways that would be chronicled for generations. Such events, often recorded with exact dates and hours, demonstrated that even the smallest errors or delays could produce outcomes with long-lasting effects. Chroniclers frequently interpreted these coincidences as signs of divine providence, though modern historians recognize the role of luck intertwined with human decision-making. Peasant life, though often overlooked, offered its own catalog of coincidences that shaped local culture and economy. A stray cartwheel, a lost goat, or a mislaid tool could trigger chains of events affecting harvests. These seemingly trivial events formed a web of interrelated occurrences, revealing that in medieval life, even the mundane carried the potential for historical significance. Some coincidences were seasonal, aligning with feasts, harvests, or religious observances. A sudden rainstorm might ruin a festival but preserve a crop, while a missed bell signaling a meeting might prevent a duel or negotiation mishap. These alignments, recorded in detail, suggested that medieval Europeans were keenly aware of timing, rhythm, and the sometimes miraculous interplay of events in their world. In certain cases, coincidences appeared almost engineered, as if guided by unseen hands. A traveling minstrel's arrival often coincided with political or economic turning points, his performances unwittingly influencing mood, negotiation, or morale. Similarly, wandering pilgrims inadvertently carried news, illness, or messages at just the right moment to prevent or cause conflict, their movements aligning with larger historical patterns. Medieval chroniclers marveled at these intersections, hinting at a mysterious order underlying apparent randomness. Even the natural world played its part in coincidences among humans. Rivers flooding at unusual times, animals behaving strangely, or sudden weather shifts often altered journeys, trade, and even battles. In one notable account, a fog delayed a noble procession, preventing an ambush that would have changed the outcome of a local feud, a fact later recorded as both fortunate and inexplicable. Such intersections of nature and human action were viewed as lessons, warnings, or signs, reinforcing the sense that coincidence and fate were deeply intertwined. Coincidences often unfolded during market days, when merchants, farmers, and travelers converged in crowded squares, exchanging not just goods, but news, rumors, and occasionally misfortunes. A misdelivered coin purse or a delayed shipment could spark a chain of events, leading to unexpected partnerships, debts forgiven, or minor disputes that later influenced local governance. Observers noted that such incidents, seemingly random, often realigned social and economic relationships in ways impossible to predict consciously. Festivals provided fertile ground for coincidences, as townsfolk gathered for religious feasts, harvest celebrations, or saintly commemorations, creating overlapping human networks. A bard might perform a song that inspired a noble's decree, or a wandering trader's arrival could coincide with a sudden shortage of grain, resulting in serendipitous profit for a local baker. These interactions, though appearing trivial, were meticulously chronicled by abbey scribes, preserving the intricate lattice of medieval social life. In one small Flemish town, a lost letter caused confusion among guild members, leading to the reassignment of tasks that ultimately improved efficiency in the weaving workshops. The coincidental reshuffling of labor resulted in higher output and unexpected sales at the next fair, a development that local chroniclers described as blessed misfortune. Such examples illustrate how minor errors, miscommunications, or misplacements frequently produced outcomes of historical and economic significance. Nobility experienced coincidences that often shaped power dynamics. A lord, intending to attend a diplomatic meeting, was delayed by a broken cartwheel and inadvertently avoided an ambush planned by rivals. His safe arrival, days later, coinciding with favorable negotiations, stabilized regional alliances and prevented potential bloodshed, a fact recorded with awe in contemporary chronicles. These events underscore the delicate interplay of timing, human error, and chance in medieval political life. Travelers and pilgrims also played a pivotal role in coincidences. A pilgrim lost on an unfamiliar road might inadvertently bring news of famine or plague to a village just before it arrived, allowing preventative measures to be taken. Similarly, a traveling monk carrying letters between abbeys could deliver them at a moment when they averted disputes over tithes or land rights, influencing social cohesion in subtle yet meaningful ways. These chance encounters highlight the interconnectedness of human activity, even in a period often thought of as isolated or disconnected. Natural phenomena continued to shape coincidences. A sudden frost, unexpected rainfall, or a migrating flock of birds could alter travel plans, crop yields, or even local celebrations, often producing chain reactions across communities. In one recorded instance, a sudden storm forced merchants to take shelter, inadvertently saving them from an outbreak of bandit raids that occurred along the intended route, demonstrating the protective role of nature's timing. Abbeys and chroniclers often interpreted such occurrences as signs of divine providence, though modern historians recognize the complex mix of chance and environmental influence. Social rituals, including weddings, christenings, and funerals, frequently generated coincidences of note. A misaligned procession or delayed priest could inadvertently prevent conflict or inspire reconciliation between feuding families. In a French village, two separate families arriving late to a shared feast met unexpectedly, leading to an alliance that influenced local politics for decades, a development later noted in parish records. These instances illustrate how human timing, behavior, and chance combined to produce outcomes with long-term historical impact. Economic coincidences abounded as well. Traders miscounting coins, mislabeling goods, or taking unusual routes often found that such errors resulted in beneficial outcomes, avoiding loss or creating unexpected profit. A shipment of spices intended for one market accidentally reaching another coincided with a festival in that town, fetching higher prices than anticipated and producing wealth for both merchants and local vendors. These recorded events, while mundane on the surface, reveal a persistent pattern of serendipity underlying medieval commerce. Even military campaigns were influenced by coincidence, often through minor delays, miscommunications, or unexpected natural events. A messenger arriving late or a supply wagon broken down could change the outcome of skirmishes, altering the fates of soldiers and nobility alike. In one instance, a minor detour due to a washed-out bridge forced two armies to engage at a different location, avoiding a catastrophic defeat that would have reshaped local power structures entirely. Chroniclers noted these coincidences with reverence, suggesting that history often hinged on small, unanticipated events as much as on strategy or valor. Peasant life was equally shaped by these intersecting coincidences. A mislaid tool could inadvertently prevent injury during harvest. A stray animal could signal impending danger, or an unplanned meeting could influence the outcome of minor disputes. Monks recording these events in abbey chronicles treated them as lessons, demonstrating that attention to detail and mindfulness could make the difference between fortune and misfortune. In this way, the mundane routines of daily labor were intertwined with the hidden currents of coincidence, shaping outcomes far beyond the immediate moment. Seasonal and religious coincidences were also noteworthy. Rain or drought during particular feasts or planting periods often produced unexpected effects on harvests and local economies. A sudden storm on the eve of a festival might cancel celebrations, saving lives from illness or injury, while a missed harvest due to miscalculated timing could inadvertently stabilize prices in the market. Such events reinforced a medieval worldview in which divine or cosmic forces subtly intersected with everyday life, manifesting through coincidence. Even seemingly trivial animal behaviors carried significance. A dog barking at the wrong time might alert a household to fire. A fox crossing a market road could prevent theft, or a flock of geese might signal approaching travelers. These small observations, meticulously recorded by chroniclers, reveal how interconnected human, animal, and natural worlds were in medieval society. Through these lenses, daily life becomes a web of interlinked occurrences, where coincidences guide outcomes as much as intention or skill. Travelers' encounters with local populations often triggered coincidental interactions that shaped trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. A wandering bard performing a new song could inspire civic festivals or charitable donations at just the right moment, altering social dynamics in subtle yet profound ways. The medieval world, though seemingly slow-moving, was in fact a stage for countless overlapping coincidences, each quietly influencing the course of history. Some coincidences occurred in communication networks, where messages sent between nobles, merchants, and abbeys arrived at precisely the wrong or right moment, altering decisions and outcomes. A misdelivered note regarding a land lease in Burgundy inadvertently prevented a feud, as the recipient interpreted it differently, and both families reached agreement before conflict erupted. Chroniclers often marveled at such events, hinting that even trivial errors could carry profound consequences in medieval society. Markets were unpredictable hubs of coincidence, with merchants' timing, inventory errors, and accidental meetings shaping economic fortunes in ways that defied calculation. A miscounted ledger might lead to a spontaneous barter that resolved a debt dispute, or a cart taking an unusual path might prevent loss from sudden floods, producing unexpected prosperity. These interactions, while appearing mundane, were recorded as notable events, highlighting the hidden architecture of chance that influenced trade. Coincidences also arose from scheduling conflicts among nobles and their entourages. A knight delayed by a broken harness could arrive at a duel after a peace treaty was signed, averting bloodshed. In another case, a lord attending a feast misplaced his invitation, leading to a last-minute seating rearrangement that sparked alliances which shaped local politics for decades. Such examples demonstrate how small errors in timing often reverberated across medieval social hierarchies with long-term historical impact. Peasant festivals offered rich grounds for coincidental events that intertwined community, faith, and survival. A missed bell signaling the start of a dance could prevent a quarrel, while a sudden downpour might save livestock from grazing hazards. The timing of these incidents, carefully noted in monastic records, suggested a subtle order behind everyday occurrences, reinforcing the notion that coincidences were a thread connecting human and natural worlds. Observing such patterns, chroniclers framed these minor events as lessons in caution, awareness, and harmony with the rhythms of life. Religious processions also produced unpredictable coincidences. Pilgrims arriving early or late could inadvertently affect outcomes in nearby towns, preventing disputes, spreading news, or influencing donations. A wandering priest might encounter an isolated family suffering illness, bringing remedies or advice that prevented widespread sickness and indirectly shaping community well-being. These small interventions, guided by timing and circumstance, illustrate the delicate web of interactions underlying medieval social order. Travelers' journeys were often punctuated by coincidence as well. A merchant caravan delayed by mud could arrive at a market just in time to secure the best stall, avoiding conflict with a rival merchant. A traveling scholar might miss a lecture in one town only to deliver it in another, inspiring local improvements in farming, medicine, or law that otherwise would have been delayed. In this way, movement across regions became a vector for coincidences that shaped both knowledge and fortune. Natural events continued to intersect with human activity in remarkable ways. Unseasonable storms, frosts, and floods often produced chain reactions, impacting harvests, trade, and local governance simultaneously. An early frost might ruin crops in one valley while preserving them in another, inadvertently stabilizing regional markets and shaping the distribution of wealth and influence. Such observations, recorded meticulously in monastic chronicles, demonstrated a keen medieval awareness of nature's subtle effects on social and economic life. Social conflicts, whether minor quarrels or disputes over inheritance, were frequently shaped by coincidence. A lost document, an unexpected visitor, or a misplaced key could prevent escalation or produce unplanned resolutions. In a Flemish village, a quarrel over a shared well was averted when two boys accidentally swapped buckets, leading to a chance encounter that prompted reconciliation between families. Monks documented these events as lessons in humility and attentiveness, showing that even small actions could ripple through communities in profound ways. Coincidences extended to daily labor as well. Farmers misplacing tools or animals wandering unexpectedly often produced fortuitous outcomes, such as avoiding injury, improving efficiency, or preventing crop damage. A baker finding that one batch of bread had been forgotten in a storage room coincidentally prevented spoilage during an unusually hot week. A detail noted in parish records with quiet reverence. These seemingly trivial occurrences reveal how mundane daily life, intertwined with unpredictable patterns of fortune and misfortune, even minor accidents or mishaps could carry historical significance. A broken wheel on a lord's cart delayed a military expedition, inadvertently allowing peace talks to succeed before any blood was shed. A misaligned stone in a bridge's arch forced travelers to take an alternate path, leading to encounters that shaped trade, marriage alliances, or political negotiations. Chroniclers often viewed these events as evidence of providence, though they were likely a mixture of chance, human choice, and environmental factors. Communal religious observances, feasts, and fairs also generated intricate coincidences. The timing of rainfall, illness, or miscommunication could alter participation, redistribute resources, or shift social hierarchies in subtle ways. A minor error in a festival schedule once prevented a riot between rival guilds, while a sudden shortage of bread inadvertently encouraged collaboration and shared feasting among townsfolk. These events, preserved in chronicles, emphasize the fragile balance of medieval life, constantly swayed by chance occurrences that interconnected communities. Even seemingly trivial animal behaviors bore historical influence. Horses balking on a bridge delayed a noble party, sparing them from ambush, while a flock of geese signaling danger altered daily routines of villagers. Farmers, merchants, and nobles began to interpret these signals, often consulting abbeys for guidance or recording them in household accounts, revealing a medieval awareness of patterns spanning human and animal life. Through careful observation, coincidences became embedded in cultural memory, shaping decisions and behavior for generations. In the grand halls of medieval castles, life moved with careful ceremony, yet beneath the veneer of protocol lay coincidences that shaped politics, succession, and even war. Courtiers whispered of letters, misplaced envoys delayed, and servants who inadvertently altered the timing of royal decisions, each minor event producing unforeseen consequences. Historians today marvel at these subtle interplays, noting how the smallest mishap could redirect the course of history in a single day. In southern England, a young prince's intended audience with a powerful lord was delayed by a stubborn mule, allowing time for a secret letter to be delivered that diffused a brewing rebellion. The prince's safe arrival, coinciding perfectly with the timing of the letter, stabilized alliances and prevented a potential civil conflict, a sequence chroniclers described as miraculous yet true. Such incidents underscore the delicate balance of chance and human agency in medieval courtly life. Royal marriages, often arranged for political alliance, were also subject to coincidence. A misplaced dowry chest or misread proclamation could inadvertently prevent a union, changing the fate of dynasties. In one French duchy, a bride arrived late due to a blocked bridge, and in that brief window, negotiations shifted, producing a more favorable marriage contract that would secure peace for decades. Chroniclers noted these events with awe, suggesting that fate itself intervened through the most mundane errors. Even royal hunts produced fateful coincidences. A misplaced arrow or an unusual path through the forest could prevent disaster or alter the trajectory of noble encounters. During a hunt in Burgundy, a stray stag led two rival lords into an unexpected meeting, resulting in reconciliation and the formation of an alliance that would endure through political turmoil. These seemingly trivial moments reveal how coincidence intertwined with diplomacy and personal relations among the elite. Wars, too, were profoundly affected by chance occurrences. A delayed supply wagon could avert an ambush. A misdirected messenger could prevent premature engagement, or a sudden fog could save an army from destruction. In northern Italy, a small delay caused by a broken wheel allowed reinforcements to arrive at a key battlefield, tipping the scales in favor of the defending forces and altering regional politics. Chroniclers often interpreted these events as divine intervention, though modern analysis highlights the interplay of timing, human error, and environmental factors. Royal decrees occasionally hinged on coincidence. A scribe's miswriting or a misplaced seal could change the interpretation of a law, affecting estates, taxes, and local governance. In one recorded incident, a misdated decree inadvertently granted privileges to a town that had been struggling under heavy taxation, boosting prosperity and earning loyalty from previously rebellious subjects. These errors, preserved in archives, demonstrate the profound impact of seemingly minor clerical mishaps in medieval administration. Political intrigue thrived on timing, with spies, envoys, and secret letters influencing decisions in ways that often relied on fortuitous coincidences. A letter intercepted or delayed could avert an assassination, trigger reconciliation, or redirect the course of negotiations between rival kingdoms. Chroniclers described these sequences with fascination, noting how history could pivot on the timing of a single messenger's journey. Coincidences also appeared in royal succession. Unexpected births, deaths, or illnesses could reorder dynastic claims, producing unforeseen heirs or avoiding disputes entirely. A child born prematurely, coinciding with a minor noble's untimely death, could inherit titles and lands, reshaping political alliances across the region. Such occurrences, meticulously recorded in church registers and annals, often determined the fate of kingdoms for generations. Battles were rife with coincidences. Whether terrain and chance encounters could produce victories or prevent disaster. A sudden storm might halt an advancing army, while a hidden ford could allow a surprise maneuver. In one notable engagement, a cavalry unit, delayed by a washed-out bridge, arrived just in time to flank the enemy, transforming a likely defeat into a decisive victory. Chroniclers marveled at these moments, attributing them to providence or fate, though they were often the product of random variables aligning perfectly. Royal advisors also encountered coincidences in courtly affairs. A missed audience or misheard instruction could redirect policy, prevent conflicts, or even cause unintended favoritism among nobles. In a Portuguese court, a misread report led a king to favor a minor noble over a powerful duke, inadvertently stabilizing the kingdom during a period of unrest. These small errors, carefully documented in court records, reveal the fragile nature of power and the subtle role of chance in governance. Diplomatic missions were particularly susceptible to coincidence. Envoys delayed by weather, illness, or travel mishaps often arrived at pivotal moments, changing negotiations' outcomes. One envoy, stranded by a sudden snowstorm, arrived after rival parties had reconsidered their positions, securing a peace treaty without bloodshed. Chroniclers saw these events as miraculous, though modern historians recognize the interplay of chance, preparation, and human decision-making. Even seemingly trivial details, such as the timing of a royal banquet or the seating of a particular guest, could trigger coincidences with political consequences. A misplaced guest might overhear a confidential conversation, later reporting it to an ally or rival, influencing strategic decisions in the kingdom. Such moments highlight how minute events often intersected with the grand sweep of medieval political history. Royal hunting lodges and estates, while places of leisure, were sites of consequential coincidences as well. Accidental meetings, lost keys, or misdirected orders could produce alliances or avert crises. In one case, a wandering page delivering a forgotten document prevented the unlawful seizure of lands, stabilizing a contentious region. These examples illustrate that medieval life, even in its most private or recreational aspects, was deeply entwined with the unexpected forces of coincidence. Coincidences in royal courts often revolved around the chain of messengers, whose arrival, delay, or misdirection could alter alliances, marriages, and even war strategies. In Castile, a delayed courier carrying intelligence about troop movements allowed a king to reposition forces, avoiding an ambush and securing a decisive victory. Chroniclers marveled. Intervention, though luck and circumstance clearly played a pivotal role. Occasionally, chance encounters within palace corridors produced fateful consequences. A forgotten corridor meeting between a minor noble and a high-ranking advisor led to a recommendation that changed the course of governance for a province. Similarly, a spilled goblet of wine might delay a ceremonial greeting, preventing insult or conflict between rival factions, a detail noted in careful chronicles. These everyday accidents demonstrate how seemingly trivial incidents could influence political stability in ways both subtle and profound. Royal hunts, beyond their leisure purpose, often produced unexpected alliances or reconciliations. A lost stag could cause rival lords to collaborate, inadvertently securing truce or cooperative defense agreements. In Bavaria, two nobles, chasing the same quarry, were forced to cooperate, a coincidence that historians describe as fortuitous. Such events illustrate the interwoven nature of chance and strategy in medieval aristocratic society. War councils were rife with coincidences. A missing map, a delayed scribe, or a miscounted troop could determine victory or disaster. During a siege in northern France, a misplaced reconnaissance report, unintentionally avoiding enemy traps and saving hundreds of soldiers. These seemingly minor oversights, recorded in battle chronicles, underscore the delicate balance of timing, judgment, and sheer luck in military outcomes. Royal succession often hinged on coincidental events, such as unexpected illness, premature birth, or delayed communication. In Aragon, a prince who would have been disinherited survived due to a courier's delay, later ascending the throne and altering the political landscape for decades. Chroniclers frequently attributed such occurrences to providence, reinforcing the medieval belief in fate's hand in governance. Diplomatic negotiations were similarly influenced by timing coincidences. Envoys delayed by weather or travel mishaps often arrived at critical junctures, changing treaty terms or averting conflicts. A Venetian ambassador, delayed by a sudden storm, delivered crucial intelligence that allowed a rival city-state to reconsider aggressive actions, preventing bloodshed. These instances illustrate how even small accidents could produce outcomes with far-reaching consequences. Even military logistics depended on coincidence. A supply wagon delayed by muddy roads could prevent troops from engaging prematurely, while an early arrival of reinforcements might change a battle's tide. In one campaign, a miscalculated march prevented the destruction of a village, while an accidental meeting with local guides provided strategic insight that ensured victory. Chroniclers noted these events with awe, blending observation of human error with recognition of unpredictable fortune. Coincidences also shaped internal court intrigue. Misheard advice, lost letters, or accidental overhearing could result in promotions, demotions, or reconciliations. In England, a misdelivered royal edict led to an unexpected favor for a minor noble, stabilizing regional governance during a volatile period. Such incidents illustrate the interplay of chance, human agency, and perception within medieval power structures. Royal ceremonies themselves were fertile ground for coincidence. The timing of processions, seating arrangements, and ceremonial roles could lead to unexpected interactions with lasting consequences. A misassigned seat at a coronation banquet allowed two previously hostile courtiers to speak privately, resolving a dispute that had threatened to destabilize the court. These small, often unnoticed moments reveal the profound influence of seemingly trivial accidents on history. Even the natural world intersected with royal affairs in ways that created fateful coincidences. Sudden fogs, storms, or unseasonable weather could alter hunting routes, messengers, journeys, or military plans. In one documented case, a sudden storm forced a king's army to encamp unexpectedly, inadvertently avoiding a surprise attack and saving the realm from temporary chaos. Chroniclers frequently framed these events as divine signs, though their recurrence suggests the persistent role of chance in shaping outcomes. Royal births and deaths often coincided with unpredictable events that reshaped dynasties. A sudden illness of a queen could postpone a coronation. A child born prematurely might inherit unexpectedly, or a servant's delay could alter succession proceedings. In Burgundy, a prince's premature birth coincided with the untimely death of an elder sibling, creating an heir whose reign would profoundly influence regional politics for decades. Monks and scribes carefully recorded these events, emphasizing the fragile balance of fate, health, and timing in the life of the court. Even minor domestic accidents could produce historical consequences. A fallen candle might delay a dinner, allowing a key advisor to provide counsel at a critical moment. A misplaced key might prevent access to sensitive chambers, averting a potential theft or espionage attempt within the castle walls. These mundane occurrences demonstrate how daily life and coincidence were inseparable in medieval royal households. Finally, the convergence of multiple small coincidences often produced outcomes that shaped kingdoms. Letters, delayed servants, distracted natural obstacles, and minor accidents would intersect, producing chains of events that historians later studied with fascination. A single evening in a Parisian court could see disputes averted, alliances formed, and treaties renegotiated, all due to a cascade of small coincidental events recorded in annals. Such examples illustrate that medieval history was as much shaped by timing and chance as by deliberate strategy or valor. In the quiet villages scattered across medieval Europe, daily life appeared ordinary, yet subtle coincidences often shaped outcomes that influenced the broader region. A lost tool, a mislaid basket of grain, or a stray goat could trigger a chain of events that altered relationships, trade, or even seasonal preparations. Monks and abbots carefully recorded these seemingly minor incidents, recognizing their potential to ripple through village life with unforeseen consequences. Market days were particularly fertile ground for coincidence. Merchants and farmers congregated, exchanging goods, gossip, and occasionally minor misfortunes. A miscounted coin or delayed delivery could spark unexpected partnerships, resolve disputes, or even influence local politics by aligning rival factions inadvertently. Chroniclers often treated these events as more than economic curiosities, framing them as lessons in prudence, timing, and attention to detail. Festivals provided another setting where coincidences flourished. Harvest celebrations, saintly feasts, and religious processions created overlapping networks of interaction. A sudden rainstorm could cancel an event, preventing conflict or preserving a crop, while a misaligned schedule might foster alliances between previously rival families. Such occurrences, carefully noted by local scribes, reveal the subtle balance between human planning and unpredictable chance. Even minor domestic events carried historical significance. A dropped loaf of bread might alert a household to impending danger, or a spilled candle could delay a critical conversation. A shepherd losing track of a lamb might stumble upon an opportunity to prevent livestock theft or discover a hidden water source for the village. These small actions demonstrate that even mundane events in medieval households often intersected with larger social, economic, and environmental outcomes. Animals played a crucial role in these coincidences. Dogs, cats, horses, and livestock often signaled danger, led humans to opportunity, or influenced local decisions. A cow wandering into a neighbor's field might avert conflict by revealing a hidden hazard or fostering collaboration between families. Monks recorded these animal-driven coincidences, recognizing the interdependence of human and natural worlds in shaping village life. Weather, as always, introduced an element of unpredictability. Sudden storms, unseasonable heat, or frost could upend planned activities, redirect trade, or prevent minor conflicts. A late frost could destroy a portion of a harvest for one family while inadvertently protecting another, demonstrating the delicate balance of timing and fortune. These climatic coincidences reinforced the medieval understanding that chance, human activity, and nature were inseparably linked. Trade routes offered yet another context for coincidental outcomes. Merchants traveling between villages might be delayed by floods, find alternative paths, or meet travelers whose news or advice altered decisions. A misrouted shipment could arrive just in time for a festival, producing unexpected profit, while a delayed messenger could prevent a dispute over a contract or property claim. Such events, though seemingly trivial, were meticulously chronicled, illustrating the cumulative impact of small coincidences across the region. Social gatherings often produced subtle coincidences affecting the fabric of village life. A misplaced chair at a feast, a misread invitation, or a delayed guest could prevent conflict or spark reconciliation. In one German village, two rival families inadvertently sat together at a festival banquet, fostering conversation that resolved a decade-long feud over grazing rights. These small, everyday coincidences contributed to stability, social cohesion, and the nuanced patterns of medieval communal life. Religious observances, too, were interwoven with coincidence. Pilgrimages, church services, and saintly feast days sometimes coincided with natural events or unexpected arrivals, producing outcomes both practical and symbolic. A wandering priest arriving early could prevent illness by advising on hygiene or herbal remedies, while a festival coinciding with favorable weather boosted harvest preparedness and local morale. Monks and abbots chronicled these alignments, framing them as lessons in observation, mindfulness, and divine providence. Even labor itself produced coincidences. Farmers working fields, bakers in ovens, and weavers at looms often experienced minor mishaps with unanticipated effects. A misthreaded loom might accidentally produce a more desirable pattern, while a delayed harvest could prevent crop loss during an unexpected storm. These small, seemingly trivial events contributed to local prosperity, stability, and sometimes even regional trade advantages. Minor accidents in transport also carried consequences. Broken carts, misplaced animals, or delayed deliveries could alter trade flows, prevent disputes, or redirect labor in advantageous ways. In one French village, a wagon losing a wheel prevented a caravan from leaving, allowing a last-minute contract adjustment that benefited multiple townsfolk. Such coincidences highlight the delicate balance of chance and routine in everyday medieval commerce. Children and youth also influenced coincidental outcomes. A lost child might be discovered by a traveling merchant, leading to information about market conditions, or stumble upon a hidden path that prevented conflict. Playful mistakes, forgotten tools, or miscounted games sometimes sparked events that rippled into adult decisions, marriages, or property management. Abbeys often recorded these instances as signs of interconnectedness between the young, the environment, and village governance. Finally, the convergence of multiple minor coincidences often produced effects that shaped entire regions. Weather, animals, market errors, social interactions, and labor mishaps intersected in unpredictable patterns. A single festival might combine all these elements, resulting in new alliances, redistributed resources, or unanticipated prosperity for certain families or guilds. Through these layers of minor events, historians see how everyday medieval life was a tapestry of hidden coincidences, connecting the mundane with the historically significant. Even the smallest domestic chores often intersected with coincidences of consequence. A mislaid bucket of water might reveal a hidden leak, preventing structural damage to a home or barn. Similarly, a basket of eggs dropped by accident could prompt a child to discover a hidden path or forgotten store of grain, indirectly preventing food shortages. Monks frequently recorded these events, demonstrating that ordinary life was filled with unrecognized patterns of cause and effect. Cooking and baking were not immune to fate's subtle hand. A loaf left too long in the oven might accidentally ferment differently, producing a richer flavor that brought unexpected prosperity to a family baker. Spilled flour could lead to the discovery of a hidden rodent infestation before it became serious, safeguarding both crops and domestic health. Such minor occurrences highlight the medieval understanding that fortune often revealed itself in everyday labor. Laundry and textile work occasionally produced coincidences with lasting effects. Misthreaded looms could create patterns that became highly desirable, altering a family's economic standing for the season. Similarly, misplaced bundles of cloth might be noticed by traveling merchants or nobles, sparking trade agreements that had been unanticipated. These events underscore how small, seemingly mundane errors often intersected with larger social and economic networks. Gardens and herb plots also contributed to subtle coincidences. A plant growing in an unintended spot could inspire discovery of medicinal properties or prevent the spread of pests to other crops. A dropped seed might germinate in fertile soil previously unused, providing sustenance or income for a struggling household. Monks and apothecaries often noted such events, interpreting them as signs of providence intertwined with human diligence. Animal care frequently introduced coincidental patterns into village life. A cow wandering off could prevent illness by avoiding contaminated pasture, while a stray horse might uncover a hidden trail connecting distant estates. Even pets played a role. Dogs barking at specific times sometimes alerted households to fires, intruders, or approaching travelers, creating moments that influenced broader social interactions. These small, interwoven events illustrate the profound interconnectedness of humans and animals in medieval society. Religious rituals were intertwined with daily coincidences. A delayed bell, a misaligned procession, or an unexpectedly early arrival of pilgrims could change the outcome of charitable distributions or local reconciliations. In one recorded festival, a misread prayer schedule prevented a confrontation between rival families, fostering temporary peace in the village. These examples emphasize the role of timing and chance in creating social harmony alongside spiritual practice. Children's mischief often had ripple effects extending far beyond the initial act. Lost toys, stray animals, or forgotten errands could spark events that prevented conflict or facilitated new alliances between families. In a small German hamlet, a child chasing a stray goose inadvertently led a merchant to a hidden shortcut, saving both time and resources for the entire market community. Monastic records treated these playful coincidences as evidence of subtle, often unnoticed guidance shaping village life. Transport and travel in villages were also fertile grounds for coincidence. A broken wheel, a misplaced cart, or a delayed animal could alter trading schedules, prevent accidents, or redirect labor in advantageous ways. In one instance, a delayed wagon prevented a merchant from crossing a river during sudden flooding, saving both life and valuable goods. These small yet significant events illustrate the intricate balance of human planning and environmental unpredictability. Weather remained a persistent factor in daily coincidences. Sudden frost, unseasonable rain, or unexpected droughts often disrupted routines, yet sometimes produced fortunate outcomes by averting greater misfortune. A rainstorm might cancel a festival, indirectly preventing an outbreak of illness, while a delayed harvest due to wind or frost could align perfectly with safer conditions later in the season. Such environmental coincidences reinforced the medieval sense of human vulnerability and reliance on fortune's subtle hand. Community disputes frequently depended on coincidence for resolution. Misplaced objects, accidental encounters, or small timing errors often prevented quarrels or inspired reconciliation. In one French village, a misdirected letter led to rival families to meet serendipitously at the market, enabling negotiation and shared resource management for years to come. These small resolutions, recorded carefully by abbeys, demonstrate how chance intertwined with justice and social stability. Even craftwork and trade could produce coincidental effects. A miscut piece of wood in a carpenter's workshop might reveal a superior technique or design, inspiring innovations later adopted across villages. Similarly, miswoven textiles or miscolored dyes might attract attention from a noble patron, resulting in unexpected commissions and financial benefit. These examples highlight the unpredictable impact of minor errors in labor-intensive medieval economies. Finally, the convergence of multiple minor coincidences often created effects that extended beyond a single household or village. Intersecting events, labor mishaps, animal behavior, market errors, and social interactions could collectively influence regional prosperity, alliances, and even political developments. Through these layered, subtle coincidences, historians see medieval life as a vast web of interconnected events, where the ordinary frequently shapes the extraordinary. As we drift back from the bustling markets, the grand castles, and the quiet villages, it becomes clear that medieval life was stitched together by an intricate web of coincidences. From royal courts to humble cottages, a misplaced letter, a delayed messenger, or a wandering animal could ripple outward, shaping outcomes far beyond the immediate moment. These subtle, often unnoticed events remind us that history is not solely the work of kings and generals, but also of chance, timing, and human imperfection. In the quiet of abbeys and monasteries, scribes observed and recorded these threads of fate, noting patterns in markets, festivals, battles, and daily labor. Every spilled loaf of bread, broken wheel, or misthreaded loom was an opportunity for fortune to intervene, quietly altering lives, alliances, and sometimes even the course of kingdoms. Through their meticulous observations, they preserved a record of human life intertwined with coincidence, offering lessons in humility, patience, and awareness. Coincidence in medieval times was neither entirely random nor entirely fated. It existed in the spaces between intention and outcome. A noble's delayed arrival might avert war. A child's curiosity could spark an unexpected reconciliation, and a storm might protect a village from famine. Through these threads, the medieval world reveals itself as a living network of subtle interventions, where the ordinary frequently intersects with the extraordinary. As night falls over stone castles, thatched cottages, and cobbled streets, we can imagine the countless small events that quietly shaped history. Every mundane action, every task performed, every step taken held the potential to influence lives in unseen ways, creating echoes that persisted through time. In recognizing these hidden coincidences, we come to understand medieval life not as a static tableau, but as a dynamic, interconnected tapestry of chance and human endeavor. So, as your eyes grow heavy and your mind drifts toward sleep, remember that the world of the past was alive with subtle mysteries. Every spilled inkpot, miscounted coin, or wandering animal was part of a grand design of unforeseen consequences, a testament to the hidden rhythm of medieval existence. And in this quiet reflection, the coincidences of history lull us into the realization that life then as now is a delicate dance of chance, timing, and the stories we carry forward.